So I'm getting the sense that you, being in J. Rod's company, you felt that there was to him, if I can say him, an incredible depth to him, and not a humanity, but did you feel a sense that his beingness was one that included intelligence and compassion, and that we were treating him horribly?
Well, no, I would say humanity. He was a human being in every right. Different, but a human being. Then again, to a certain extent, we're all different from one another, but we're all the same. He definitely had a human heart. One thing that one of our lovely friends from the Netherlands had asked us whether or not I had showed him, this is Jan from the Netherlands, whether or not I had showed him what love was to me, and whether he had showed to me what love was to him. And the answer is yes on both counts. To him, it was his boy. He had a son at home, and a son that he deeply, desperately, to whom he wished to return. And he shared with me how he was unable to show his son love, but that he wanted to return to be with him, even if during this time that we're approaching, where the DCTP is going to collapse, the separation is going to occur, that even if they winked out, he told me, even if they did not go off into a separate timeline, a separate universe, or however this actually really works, that he wanted to be with him. To be with him, he could not show him any sort of love or affection, because that was taboo to them. They were numerologists, utilitarianists, and for him to be schooled amongst their elite, he would have to act accordingly. So he had to suppress himself, and in fact, even names were not passed amongst them.
Well, you had to take samples from J. Rod many times.
Yes, sir. And
how did that procedure take place? Once you were suited up, and I know they gave you a simple protocol that is a joke in the sense that anybody who understands this telepathic connection, but you had to stay there and say, I am human, I come in peace.
And I had to fib to both the people over the general radio that we had, as well as the second channel that we had, which was strictly the security and surveillance aspect. I had to fib that I was not being spoken to by him whatsoever.
Because they would ask you this.
Oh, yes. I mean, they would say, is he speaking with you? And I'd say, oh, no.
And was he speaking to anybody else that would come in contact with him, or were you the only one to your knowledge?
That I don't know.
All right.
That I don't know. That's a good one, because we've never, it's a good question, because we never had conversation on whether or not he was speaking with anyone else. One I hadn't even considered until now. I don't know, maybe I was just so enamored with what was going on at the time that I hadn't even considered that. It's possible. It's quite possible. If he could figure out how to do it with me successfully, and he was smarter than me, absolutely.
So you had to approach him, and tell me what that was like, how J. Rod actually moved. Give us a sense of being in that room.
When he was being good or when he was being bad?
A little bit of both.
Okay. I was supposed to step into the immediate right of the doorway from the gantry, and I was to raise my right hand and show that I was a friendly human being, and there was an outline of a human being, and it was all a big joke. At that point, I was supposed to do the bridle step toward him.
Bridle step?
Right. Left foot forward, right foot, left foot forward, right foot, as it was established by protocol with him.
All right.
And I, in fact, did so each time I stepped toward him.
As they walked down the aisle, in other words.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Okay.
I was supposed to do the same as I stepped away from him, and I was to never turn my back to him as a sign of respect. That happened in all but one occasion. That's when he decided to play a game with me, and I took a couple steps forward, and he ended up taking a couple steps forward at me. The friendship The camaraderie, the heart, gone. I mean, it was panic.
Because
Sheer
how does he
freaking
move?
panic.
Is he walking like we do? How does he move?
Essentially, yes, but he was limping, and he had a hard time actually walking erect because he was losing muscle tissue. He had severe atrophy in both of the legs, and so he would walk but limp. So, from my perspective at the time, before I almost threw up when he stepped toward me, he looked like he was flopping his way toward me. And when he did so, I panicked, total panic, screamed, stepped backward. I caught my boot on the grating and fell back on my back. That's not a good thing to do in that situation because I had a pack on me with a cooling unit. It could
have been cross-contamination. It could have been...
If I had a protocol and I had tape with me and all of that, if I had cut myself the same way in a BL4 lab to retape myself and then be isolated and go through decon, and that would have been a real problem. And I'll tell you why, because I'll get back to what happened in a second. But when we're separated from the clean sphere, we're taken over to the decon unit, and the entire gantry room is flooded with a decon chemical, so you actually get suspended in a decon chemical. Now, had the tape or had the gouge in a suit, if that had happened, not held, that decon chemical, I would have had to have kept that off my skin, or it would have caused severe burns. Then they flush it out, flush you with water, and then you're allowed out before the desuiting and all of that. And there's a whole series of protocols for the doffing and all of that. But I fell backward, and he didn't jump on me as I heard some folks say. He just literally stepped up onto my chest, and he looked down at me and he smiled at me.
He smiled?
He smiled at me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about as good as it used to get. He used to kind of click his face, and I knew he was smiling. That was his way. And now, mind you, the B team out on the floor, including Bob at the time, was going nuts on the radio because I had fallen backward and I had been attacked by the guest. From their point of view.
Yeah, they're talking. Yeah.
I'm yelling, no, 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 while I'm laying there on my back. No, no, no. I'm telling them no. Mm-hmm. They're thinking I'm telling him no, that he was hurting me. And I'm flopping around like a cockroach there on the floor. Yeah. Real nice.
So what happened?
Boy, don't I feel great.
Yeah.
And so I'm laying there on my back, and I then I remember pushing the number 2 button, and I said, I'm okay, to try to tell the security people not to intumess him. I would have been fine. They may have killed him at that point. The next thing I remember, I wasn't there. He had entrained me, and he was showing me his home, and he was talking with me.
He had locked you up in sort of a two-way mental exchange.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say mind meld, but...
Well, it's not this Vulcan.
Right.
Death
And
business,
was it that experience that you feel infused you with some innate knowledge that led to the discovery of the Ganesh particle?
No. He showed me as part of that communication. It was fast, and it was a real rapid ride with him. But what he did is he showed me his idea about how life came about.
He showed you his home.
Well, he showed me his home, he showed me his boy, he showed me his wife, and he showed me his mother.
In his home world, did you get a sense of what the cities looked like or what his home world was like?
Yes.
Can you give us just a little taste of that?
Only to a certain extent, because part of it was left private between him and myself. And I'll honor that. It was extremely dank, dark. It was an underground facility with tubes. There were no portraits or normal living amenities, what we would consider, coverings on tables or anything like that. All stoneware looking, gray sheet metal colored. No real color to his world at all. He showed me his son, who was cute.
And his wife.
And
lack of a better word.
his wife.
Yeah.
Well, no, it was his mating pair.
Right.
They had mating groups, and showed me his mother and why he was given the private name that he was given. The fact that she was aware from prior viewings with their equipment that he would come here as an exchange, which is part of the reason why they called him Kaela, was from the word challah, meaning a bread gift. And there are several levels to, in fact, even his name. But I felt the love from her to him, and these sorts of things. Not all of it was, some people have asked, well, could he have lied to you? Yeah, of course. Of course, he was quite capable. He was smarter than me, and he was a human being. Human beings lie.
But you didn't get the sense that he was?
No.
Did you get a sense
No.
of why he was on that craft that crashed in Arizona? Was he sent here, as you said, in exchange, but can you give us a little better idea of what that
Yeah, he was
mission
part of a diplomatic exchange unit to improve our ability to back engineer their craft.
So he meant to crash and be captured?
No.
But
No, they had a gravimetric problem in Arizona, and they went down. It was during bad weather. It was a gravimetric problem, I believe, involving the electrical conduction in the atmosphere, and they dumped.
If they hadn't gone down, where would they have ended up? What would they have done?
They would have ended up not that far away in New Mexico at Los Alamos.
Doing?
They were to land there and then disembark and act as part of the exchange program. The one fellow that died there at the scene was taken to Los Alamos. Ostensibly, I guess he was taken to the sweetness facility there at Los Alamos Underground.
So you're saying that Majestic 12
facility.
had a exchange program already up and running at that stage?
A one-way exchange program, yes, sir. And the problem with this is that in 1953, while they thought that they were dealing with time travelers, they didn't know for sure. There was not that much information forthcoming. It was not until the Orions in 1954 actually brokered the treaty system that we knew for sure. That was, of course, brokered with Eisenhower. It was brokered in California, and that was brokered, in fact, with an exchange gift of the cube, which you showed me earlier that you had an image from Marcia.
Right.
The so-called Yellow Book or Yellow Cube or the Orion Cube.
Give people an idea of some of the members of the original MJ-12.
Well, you've got my wife's grandfather's friend, James Forrestal, who was terminated. He did not commit suicide. That is garbage.
Thrown out of a window,
Yeah.
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 Who else?
He was somewhat unstable, from what I understand, and he was preparing to talk unilaterally at a time when no such allowance would be made, and he was terminated as a result. That's what happens, and I'm making a very serious hint here. That's what happens to people when they speak unilaterally. Sometimes they're assassinated.
Who else was part of that, the original?
Oh, Vannevar Bush, who is the original scientist. And I've got a list of them here if you'd like.
Oh, you can, off the top of your head, or whatever is easiest.
Well, we've got Hillenkotter. But, the thing is with me, these early folks are essentially non-existent. When I came in 86, not only were they not spoken about, nobody really cared. It was a new unit. It was a new group of 12. So, it's a quaint history and all of that, but it's not a history which, aside from the knowledge of the history of the Majestic, it's not a history that matters.
Anybody else that you think is worthy of mentioning?